Hi everyone. Today is Saturday, and I left the most interesting topic on the Saturday afternoon. That will be employer-sponsored visas. So I will be talking not only about classic employer-sponsored visa, but the whole process, how to try to search for employment, what happened when you find employer, and what steps you would need to take. So let me introduce myself. My name is Yulia, and I'm a registered migration agent. I have an office on the Gold Coast, Queensland, Australia. Me and my team are working with variety of visas, except protection and refugee. So we're catering all the visa subclasses, including employer-sponsored visas, visitor visas, 400 visas. I'm presenting this topic as a part of my series. I've done the whole week this week dedicated to different types of visas. So if you're interested in other visas, you can come back and rewatch my recorded videos. So before we start, I would be happy to take any questions from anyone who is going to be listening today. Please put the questions in the chat, and after I finish, I will be able to attend those questions. So let's start briefly about what's going on in the employer-sponsored visa space. So with the slowing down of skilled migration for the past 2 years, employer-sponsored visas came in a very good play, and the processing improved slightly, I would say, from the department. And department are encouraging this type of visas because people are coming quicker to Australia, people are coming to work, and they're going to be paying taxes. So don't forget that this year, the same political party, Labour, won the elections. So I believe it's going to be the same climate of prevailing of employer-sponsored visas, because again, as I said, the employees are bringing taxation in Australia, paying taxes, living in Australia, and working exactly in the occupation. So that is going to be trend. But what steps to do when you are in the search of employer to come to Australia? So first of all, you need to start with your profile to understand what sort of visas you're going to be eligible for. Reason for that is it's pointless to start searching for work if you're not eligible for any visa. When you're going to be pre-assessing yourself for employer-sponsored visas, the main points to take into account will be your qualification and your officially paid work experience. So all work experience that's cash in hand and never been declared anywhere, unfortunately, you cannot use that because Department of Home Affairs will ask to provide evidence of work experience. So there are a variety of visas where the work experience will be crucial. So let's break it down from the beginning. If you find an employer in Australia and you are overseas, there are a variety of short-term solutions how you can come to Australia, meet with your employer, discuss your employment contract, at least see the your employment place, meet the team, etc. And that's a very good idea to do that, because if you're going to be signing up for long-term employer-sponsored visas, it's for your own benefit to understand where you're going to be going in the long term. So the variety of visas available are visitor visas, 600 business stream, where you specifically coming to see that employer and you can negotiate your contract, you can participate in the practical interview, but on that visa, you are not allowed to work officially. So do not break the law and work, obviously, under the table. But this visa is specifically created to come and visit the workplace and potentially get to know each other. I had a variety of clients who were going on these visas to see several employers to then make their mind who is the best fit to proceed for employer-sponsored visa. So there will be a variety of other visitor visa, depending on the country of your passport, where you can pretty much arrange it within one day and come to Australia the next day. So e-visitor visas, depending on the country of passport, will be able to bring you to Australia very quickly. Again, no work rights, and those visas are usually arranged for up to 3 months stay. So you will have an opportunity to get to know your employer or visit several employers. The other several options to come to Australia quickly, again, depending on your country of passport and your age, will be working holiday visas. The reason for that is Australia is attracting young professionals from the certain countries. And if we're talking about you sitting overseas and then you have a profile that fits to any eligible employer sponsored visas, and say you're connected with your employer from overseas and you have a country of passport, your age is available under working holiday program, that's a good opportunity to come and start working for your proposed sponsor to see if you both are good fit for each other. If not, then you will have an opportunity to potentially extend working holiday visas for up to 3 years when you satisfy the requirements of regional work. So it's a good opportunity to build the case for those who say just finish university or just finish eligible qualification and then would like to build a career in Australia. You can use wisely your working holiday visas in order to come to Australia and build a case for employer sponsored visa, as an example. Another option, not for junior specialists, but for highly skilled specialists, is to come to Australia and work on a highly skilled project. So that visa is 400 visa for highly skilled professionals, and those visas can be used for a variety of projects. We use that visa to bring beauty trainer to deliver workshops, and she was coming every single year for the same time. Usually this visa can be granted for 3 or 6 months stay, so it depends on the needs. Also, variety of IT specialists can come on the project that has end date. Seasonal workers, again, highly skilled, can come and help during the high season. Technicians can come together with equipment to do maintenance or to do starting up the equipment. So there are varieties of occupation that can be used for this program. And the main idea of 400 visa is that this program or this project will be temporary, not ongoing, and the applicant has specific skills, and this applicant is highly skilled. So you cannot unlikely to get the graduate without any work experience to come on 400 visa unless it's some sort of niche skills. If we're talking about other options for employer sponsored visas, again, depending on the profile, the widely used visa to come and upskill can be 407 visa, training visa for upskilling. In this visa, you can have two scenarios. You can show at least 1 year out of 2 recent years of full-time work experience relevant to the nominated occupation, and show to department that, of course, you coming to upskill on the workplace in Australia. Or another option would be if you completed relevant qualification relevant to your nominated occupation within 2 years before the application is lodged. For example, talking about people who are in Australia, if you're getting your degree or qualification relevant to specific occupation, but you cannot access graduate visa due to age restriction, the alternative can be 407 visa with your employer if you completed this relevant qualification relevant to your nominated occupation, and you have an employer who will be ready to sponsor you under 487 visa. The potential beauty of 407 visa is that the costs are low, but at the same time, in the 2024-2025, due to overall costs, the employers were trying to abuse the system and lodge 407 visa for applicants who may be potentially eligible for 482 employer-sponsored visas, and we've seen a lot of refusals for 407. So it needs to be really a genuine applicant who is coming to upskill or who is going to be staying in Australia to upskill. Bear in mind that 407 visa has genuine temporary entrant criteria, so department will be assessing how much time the applicants spend in Australia already, if we're talking about somebody onshore. So you need to be mindful on that. If you are applying as a highly skilled professional with a lot of experience for 407 visa, there is a high risk that the application can be refused. So 407 visa has their own specific list of occupations, so you need to be checking whether this occupation exists actually on the list if you would like to explore this option. For primary applicants sitting on 407 visa, this applicant will be linked to the sponsor, so he will have to work only for sponsor, cannot work anywhere else. If we're talking about secondary applicant, it's an interesting limitation. So secondary applicant has 20 hours per week limitation work. So you need to be mindful on that if you're coming together with your partner to see how much is going to be the budget of you staying in the certain areas. Because for 407 visa, so there is a list of occupations. There is lower requirement for English. It's functional English, equivalent to IELTS 4.5 or other tests. Lower bar for employment or qualification, as I mentioned before. Lower costs for overall process, but the applicant, the sponsor, will have to provide proper training plan, spread for up to 2 years. So this visa can be granted for up to 2 years. And then the employee and employee will have to follow the plan and actually leave the records of how the training was going. So this visa has no clear pathway to permanent residency. It's an independent visa, so to say, and this visa can be granted for up to 2 years. Department has a right to reduce requested 2 years to some less period. It depends on the officer, so you need to be mindful on that. And as I said, 407 visa can be used as a strategic move. Be mindful that this visa does not have any minimum on the salary for migrants. So the department will be looking at market rate and obviously absolute minimum rate in Australia. So then the employer may offer you lower salary, and then bearing in mind that applicant will have to stick to the sponsor and work only for the sponsor. In the absence of secondary applicant, it may be tough on the cost of living. If you come in together, as I said, secondary applicant will be having work restriction for 20 hours per week. So you have to keep that in mind. Next standard scenario, I would say, for employer-sponsored visa is 482 visa, temporary skill in demand, that has two streams: core skills. We have specific lists. Sometimes, depending on the occupation, can be additional criteria called caveats, depending on the occupation. So you need to be mindful on that. There is other specialist skills without any list, but with a certain group of occupation and way higher salary of 135 to be increased from the 1st of July. If we're talking about standard scenario, it's likely going to be core skills. Currently, as of now, the minimum salary is from 73,150, but this salary will be increased from the 1st of July to 76,515. And please be mindful that the minimum salary is usually not used as a minimum, because you need to look at this occupation, the location, and market rate in the market and within the company to justify the salary. So, for example, if we're talking about some higher position like managers, where the market's dictating 90,000 a year, you cannot artificially lower it out to 77. So it is a discussion and research based on the occupation. So for that specific visa, the steps are both for sponsor, Australian company, or employee. The steps are sponsorship application to approve the company to be a sponsor, because the company will take legal obligations. The second step is nomination, where the business is actually nominating the certain occupation and conducting 28 days compulsory advertising campaigns on 2 eligible media that's going to have national reach. And at the same time, in the nomination, it's going to be information about the salary, information about the business. So the business will showcase themselves, the company, and basically justifying why they need this person. Costs associated with sponsorship in nomination must be paid by the business. I'm seeing a lot of anonymous posts over social media where a lot of people are paying for sponsorship, so that's illegal. Bear in mind that not only you doing illegal things, that your sponsor who is asking you to do it is also acting illegally, so do not do it, because the standard rule is sponsor pays for their own expenses, usually sponsorship and nomination, and then it's under discussion between nominee and the sponsor whether the company will cover visa costs, or it's going to be on the applicant. So you have to negotiate between yourself and your employer, but usually that's the case. So for this visa, it can be arranged for 1, 2, 3, or maximum 4 years, and the business will be paying for each and every year under Skilling Australian Fund levy. So again, you need to be mindful on your overall strategy, how you use 482 visa, how long you need it for. Again, the observation, a lot of people who were overseas arranged 482 visas for 2 years only in order to save costs. And then by the time they come to Australia on 482 visas, say the visa is granted and you're packing your bags and usually coming to Australia within the months after grant, then they will be short of months to make a transition to 186 transition. And in this case, they will have to extend 482 visa. That's going to be costly. So once you're going to be discussing 482 visa arrangement, especially if you're offshore or even if you're onshore, I would still suggest to look at least 3 years, because it's going to be on the sponsor's side to pay for it. And then you will have visa for that specific duration. So you will not be able to change it on your visa side. From 482 visa, let's discuss that 482 visa has a list of specific occupations that will require compulsory skill assessment, depending on the country, depending on the occupation. But regardless of the country, only one occupation that will require compulsory skill assessment from all of applicants, it's project program administrator. So that's a requirement, and this requirement is time of decision. So you can lodge your skill assessment application together with visa, and skill assessment can be pending, but then department will wait for results. The other occupations that require compulsory skill assessment are listed in a specific legislative instrument. However, there are also exemption categories. For example, if the applicant obtained that eligible qualification in Australia, then 482 visa require IELTS at the level of 5 for primary applicant. For secondary applicant, no requirement for English at all. And then both applicants will have full work rights, unlimited full work rights, but the primary applicant also will be linked to that specific sponsor, that specific employment. Secondary applicant can do whatever they like. They can study at their own expense at the cost of international student because it's a temporary visa, or they can build a business, or they can work anywhere they like. There is no restriction. I would like to remind you what happened with 482 visas not long ago. So for 482 visa, of course, it is permitted to change employment and go and search for another sponsor. It used to be 60 days, and within that 60 days, holders of 482 visa couldn't work at all for anyone. It was tough to change jobs. Now the department eased that criteria for up to 180 days if you resign or if your position make redundant or you're terminated. And at the same time, a lot of applicants and holders of 482 visas start shopping around and basically leaving employment not longer after the visas are granted. So that opened the risks for companies to consider 482 visas at all, because the company is investing into arranging the visas, getting advertising done, nomination, sponsorship, etc. And if the applicants are simply leaving the company in the months after the visa is granted, so that's not worth investment at all. And that brought the whole other area of concerns that the business would probably consider the employee and sponsorship, but now they are reluctant thanks to those who are using the employers just to hop on the sponsorship. So that's happening now. The options from 482 visa to permanent residency can be through skilled visas. There is a different YouTube live I made this week. You can rewatch it. Or it can be through 186 transition when the holder of 482 visa worked in Australia for sponsor for at least 2 years. Or it can be a variety of sponsored when the nominations were lodged and then later approved. These 2 years must be excluding any period of unpaid leave. So, for example, if you're sitting on 482 visa and you would like to go overseas for, I don't know, a month's time, and you're seeking unpaid leave, so you will be short for 1 month and you need to come and top it up on the employment. So in this case, you need to ask your employer whether they're going to be ready to support you for transition. And it's important to understand that the company will or will not, because if the company will not support you for transition, I would still take 482 visa in the vision that you can change the employer, or you can consider skilled visas if possible. The other option, if again the prospective applicant has a case, can be 186 direct entry. This visa is permanent residency directly with the employer, avoiding 482. This visa can be arranged from overseas and from Australia. That's not a problem. The list of occupation was significantly extended in December 2024 to allow a lot of occupations to be on the list. So now the question is to find an employer who will be willing to do so for the employee. The usual criteria for 186 direct entry is skill assessment positive, competent English for primary applicant, and at least functional for secondary, or payment of visa application charge part 2, and at least 3 years of full-time work experience in the nominated occupation, usually after skill deemed date from the skill assessment. So you need to make some steps prior of lodging this application. So you need to again discuss it with your employer whether you both are committing to that move. So for example, then you can get skill assessment done and then come back with the employer. When we're talking about lodgement of 186 visas in general, either transition or direct entry, you need to be mindful on one specific requirement of if the occupation requires registration, licensing, and so on, it needs to be provided at lodgement. Otherwise, it needs to be provided that applicant is exempt. So you need to be mindful on that. A lot of people don't know about this requirement or don't pay attention. And actually, it's time of application requirement. So it's either license or there is no requirement at all for the occupation to have a license, or if it may be required, then you need to look at exact your case. Where are you working? What's the scope of your duties? What's your occupation? Whether you exempt, and then prepare associated evidence for that. The third visa with employer that is not popular at the moment is 494 visa, regional visa, where you can only apply with regional employers. So the region in Australia will be considered all Australia except Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane. Again, the list of occupations are quite wide for 494 visa, and you can find the occupations there that does not exist on 186 direct entry as an example. The requirements are the same as direct entry: positive skill assessment, at least 3 years of work experience, competent English for primary, functional English for secondary. And in this case, the beauty of 494 visa is wider list of occupations. And yes, that visa will be issued for 5 years. It's a provisional visa that will lead you to permanent residency after 3 years of living and working in region, and you will be linked to your regional employer. So it is the best retention rate for the employer potentially. But at the same time, if you coming to 42, 43, 44 years of age, this is a good option for application, because on transition, there is no age limit applicable. For 186 visa, in the standard scenario, there is also age restriction 45, so 44 inclusive at the time of lodgement. For 482, there is no age restriction, the same as no restriction for 407. When we are again discussing what are the options to apply from 482 visa to permanent residency, say for 186, if the applicant is coming as aged, the possible option, subject to applicant's profile, company profile, and occupation, is to go on a high salary. Currently, as of now, the high salary is 175,000 a year, and this minimum will be increased from the 1st of July 2025. So if the applicant is coming on a high salary, and again, you cannot artificially nominate that high salary for the occupation that cannot attract this salary. So usually it's managerial positions. If the applicant is coming on a high salary and they're working with this high salary and increase that high salary every July, after 2 years, these applicants can be eligible for transition based on age exemption. So that's very good scenario for applicants who are aged or after 45. Another options for applicant after 45 but before 55, so there is a category that can be catered under DAMA agreement visas. So it's also employer sponsored visas, but linked to specific DAMA region. And for that, for every region, there is their own criteria, their own list of occupations, concessions for English, salary concessions, and most importantly, age concessions. So again, you can use variety of visas, 482, 186, 494 under DAMA as well. And you will have to have a look at occupation lists and check whether you fit to one or another category, because the occupation list for DAMA contains not only skilled occupations, but also semi-skilled occupations. So the list is even wider than 482 or 494 visas. So it's a variety of options. And again, for DAMA, as I said, the beauty of that is that you can potentially work your way towards permanent residency and apply with the age concession that fits for more mature applicants, and this will allow people to actually achieve permanent residency. So if we're talking about getting sponsorship, there is a variety of resources, but I would like to give you some information how it works. First of all the standard classic job portals, you can see that there are a lot of positions, a lot of advertising, but if you apply, nobody's answering you. So this can be the reason, because the process of getting the visa for somebody else already started, and this company will have to advertise. So hence the applicants already found, and you just applying in an abyss, and nobody will actually respond to you. So these portals will not contain correct information, as I would say, and you will not be able to guess which company is actually ready for sponsorship. We built our new startup, which we're currently developing. It's called Shorter, where we are sourcing and carefully selecting verified companies who are potentially ready to provide sponsorship. And also we are onboarding candidates who are verified from the other end. So then the system will allow candidate and sponsor to meet in a safe environment where the legwork and field work for both sides will already be done, and then they can connect seamlessly, perform the interview, and if the skill set fits the company, then the sponsorship occur quicker. So since launch of our portal, we already secured one sponsorship for 494 candidate under occupation customer service manager, which does not exist any longer for 482 or 186 visas. And that candidate was pretty devastated because the visa was expiring in August this year. And thanks to us, we match this candidate with a sponsor, and the process already in place to secure 494 visa, which is very pleasing to watch. Otherwise, the potential client would go home. So we are developing our project Shorter, and if you would like to be a part of it in any form, you can of course jump on the website and get your registration, or write us an email if you would like to participate by any other way. Otherwise, when you're going to be exploring and discussing your opportunities for the sponsorship, you can ask your potential sponsor several questions. What sort of visas are they offering? Are they offering pathways to permanent residency at all? Is it possible to negotiate permanent residency quicker than 2 years if we're talking about 482 transition? What sort of salary package will be offered? Whether these numbers will include or exclude superannuation, because then you will have to work your way backwards to see how much money you actually get in the bank. Because the usual salary indication is before tax, so you need to be mindful where are you going, what location, and what sort of costs you will incur while you're going to be living there. Again, you have to look at visas to see which visas will fit your situation and your sponsor situation, and then you need to discuss obviously whether the company will be offering full relocation service, or it's going to be partially paid by yourself and the company. So that's the main question to ask when you're going to be in the interview. Apart from that, I wish that everybody who will be watching that live, and if you are sorting and searching for employer in Australia, will find your dream workplace and will relocate on the employer sponsored visa. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any of those now. If there is no questions, thank you very much for watching. This live will be left on our YouTube channel, and you can access it at any time. Thanks. You have a lovely day.